I think we will see a big leap going forward in how we implement solutions around LLMs. Hello, my name is Erik and I work as a data scientist.
My name is Niklas. I lead the AI business in Sweden. And we are here to talk about our perception of the AI market. What we see in the headlines, I think there's a lot of emphasis on agentic AI and agentic workflows and these type of things. And I think the main trend that we are seeing is that, we as humans, employees, are moving more towards becoming orchestrators of AI systems and workflows. What's your take on this trend, Erik?
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of talk about like AI agents and agentic workflows. And I feel there's a lot of emphasis on like the next LLM. Like GPT-5 will be so amazing that everything will be possible. Or like imagine in 6 months this will be possible. But I think you should talk more about, like if you take Lovable for example, where we have this company that takes a foundation model and they give it tools and integrate it into systems, and they can outperform the foundation model just by like software engineering. And I think that is something that where there's real value. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think and that's also where we see, I would say, value from today in this market is connected more, as you mentioned a bit, to more straightforward LLM-based type of automations. You have RAG solutions, but also, of course, you shouldn't forget about traditional AI technologies, where there's also a lot of value in traditional machine learning, building predictive models, recommendation systems, optimization solutions, etc. And I think that still constitutes a big part of the market. On a high level, overall, the process looks quite similar. So what we typically see, there's a lot of uncertainties when it comes to, in the end, monetizing AI, which is, of course, the key point. So it's not only about, focusing on the technical aspects of building an AI solution, because there are, of course, technical issues or uncertainties, but there's also a bigger part issues like how do you make the organization to adopt the AI solution, or do we actually build a solution that is actually viable or valuable to the business? So what we typically do in projects is that we, of course, try to understand what are the main assumptions when it comes to this AI initiative that we must, in different ways, validate. So that's always the start of any type of projects, even it might be like a traditional or a Gen AI-based projects. But there might be difference in practice, what type of challenges that we might see in these different types of AI domains or so. What challenges do you see across these type of AI applications?
I think it's quite interesting. Like if you look at Gen AI projects, like a more classical machine learning project, like 10 years ago, you had a very specific problem that you wanted to solve. Say, for example, this is like very basic, but I need to differentiate if it's a cat or a dog. Then I train a model who can do that. But now with Gen AI, instead I get like a very good generalized model who understands language exceptionally well. And then the question is, okay, how can I solve a problem with this? And then I need to find my use case in my business. And so it's like it has flipped sides almost. But as you mentioned, like the processes are very much alike. You still need to be fast-footed. You need to try for value, short iterations. If it works, if it doesn't work, you take a step back. So I agree. The processes are very much the same, but like the challenges are different.
Yeah, and I think what's different maybe in the new paradigm is that you more quickly get to a prototype or a proof of concept, something visible for users to take a look at, because the model is already there, so you're just building the application directly. But when it comes to traditional machine learning, etc., then this is actually quite big accomplishment just to build the model,
Yeah.
which requires a lot of time. So I think at least in terms of iterating and gaining user feedback and testing, I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like with with the new like LLM models, you could spin up a quite okay functioning customer support in maybe like 1 week, and it isn't as important how good data quality you have, because you just OCR scan PDFs instead. So you can definitely get to value quicker.
But I think first of all, I think it's important to emphasize a bit, we have our sort of strengths coming from, data, coming from the data domain, and we also have over 15 years of experience working in, traditional AI type of applications. So we know a lot what it actually takes to build and sort of scale these traditional systems, which I think provides a lot of, learnings and insights when moving into this next paradigm as well. Now looking ahead, I think we are of course making a lot of investments into this. So as an example, we have the AI Studio, which enables us to lie in the forefront of what's happening. We are also investing a lot in building our sort of own AI capabilities internally, and sort of providing services internally to change how we operate and improve how we operate, etc. And I think that provides a lot of learnings and of course research related to that. Then I think it's about how we build the organization in the end. As we talk about, we of course have our way of approaching AI problems and so, but I think the key ingredient is really how we form the teams around these projects. So as this field is moving so fast, no one can really be the expert of everything. So what we do differently is, I think, or at least how we do things, is we have different roles, like AI designers focusing on ensuring that we are finding the most pressing problem to solve, or maybe low-hanging fruits, etc. We have data scientists and machine learning engineers that are more close to develop models and these type of things. We have software engineers that are able to build these scalable systems, etc., and data engineers to ensure that we can source the data properly. So I think, and by working closely with our clients, we see what works, and we can scale those working approaches towards other clients. So sort of this accelerates a bit also how we learn.
The thing is all about like collaborating and like all the different players involved, because I feel like Gen AI affects so many different areas in like data, software development, and so on. And here at Solita, we have software developers, we have data engineers and AI designers and so on. And I feel like we do a really good job of working together, like learning from each other. Because like the borders, like what is Gen AI, and is it a data engineering task? Probably not only. Is it only a software development task? No, probably not. It's like a mix of very different competences. And I think we're starting to get a really good grip of like what the right mix of talents should be involved in delivering a very good Gen AI project.
Exactly.
And that has been a very interesting journey to figure that out.
Yeah. I think it's also, of course, one aspect is, of course, also how we work with our partners.
Yeah. Things are changing so rapidly. But if I would make a prediction for the coming 1 to 3 years, I think like if we look at LLMs, I think there's a bit of diminishing returns when releasing these new models. Like if you look from GPT-2 to GPT-3, there was a enormous like improvement in performance. But if you look at from GPT-4 or GPT-4.5 to 5, you can see there is like diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And I think it's also quite like it makes sense, because we know that Google and OpenAI and so on, they train on like almost all data on Earth. So there isn't like any more data to train on. So I think we will see it will be harder to get better foundation models. And I think that makes it even more important to focus on the application layer. Because I think as of now, we have focused on how can we get the best foundation model possible, but we haven't really explored how to build like the best application layer surrounding the foundation model. So like how do we integrate systems to like databases and give it access to tools and so on. My conclusion is I think we will see a big leap going forward in how we implement solutions around LLMs instead of just relying on how good the LLMs are coming out of the data centers.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there are of course limitations with GPTs, and I think that's very likely unless there's like new technology that is being developed. But I think based on what we are also seeing, like we have all our partners are investing like crazy in building, capabilities for the application layer and these type of things. And I think that was a similar thing we also saw when it comes to traditional ML and AI. Like in the beginning, the capabilities to start to build the models, to experiment and prototype this type of technologies were first created. And once more organizations started to look into operationalizing these solutions, then the tooling to make that possible to sort of operate reliable ML systems at scale were developed. And I think that's what's really now happening. We have all our partners, investing to really build capable tooling around this. I think that will make a big difference when we now move towards likely operationalizing more AI applications in the next 1 to 3 years.